Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 26, entitled as King Puranjana Goes to the Forest to Hunt. Herein, text 4th is Chachara Mrigayam Tatra Dripta Ateshu Karmukha Vihaya Jayam Atadharam Mrigvyasana Lalasa. Chachara executed, Mrighayam hunting, Tatra there, Driptaha being proud, At having taken, Ishu arrows, Karmukha bow, Vihaya giving up, Jayam his wife, Atat araham although impossible, Mrigha hunting, Vyasana evil activities, Lalasa being inspired by. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: It was almost impossible for King Puranjan to give up the company of his queen even for a moment. Nonetheless, on that day, being very much inspired by the desire to hunt, he took up his bow and arrow with great pride and went to the forest, not caring for his wife. Purport: One form of hunting is known as women hunting. A conditioned soul is never satisfied with one's wife. Those whose senses are very much uncontrolled especially try to hunt for many women. King Puranjana's abandoning the company of his religiously married wife is representative of the conditioned soul's attempt to hunt for many women for sense gratification. Wherever a king goes, he is supposed to be accompanied by his queen. But when the king or the conditioned souls becomes greatly overpowered by the desire for sense gratification, he does not care for religious principles. Instead, with great pride, he accepts the bow and arrow of attachment and hatred. Our consciousness is always working in two ways, the right way and the wrong way. When one becomes too proud of his position, influenced by the mode of passion, he gives up the right path and accepts the wrong one. Kshatriya kings are sometimes advised to go to the forest to hunt ferocious animals just to learn how to kill. But such forests are never meant for sense gratification. Killing animals to eat their flesh is forbidden for human beings. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. I would like to welcome you for morning Srimad Bhagavatam class, and I'm grateful to the organizers. They have given me this service. So focusing on this fourth canto, we'll have a glance over the fourth canto and come to the particular purport for the 4.26.4. And here we see that there's a conversation from the third canto between Maitreya and Vidura. Vidur was first approached to, he had gone to Uddhava. Uddhava, being a pure devotee of Krishna, sends him to Maitreya Rishi. One may have a doubt at the outset, if Uddhava is a pure devotee, why he sends to Maitreya? Uddhava wanted to follow the regulations of Varnashram, that Maitreya Rishi is a sadhu, he is a sage, so he should be hearing from Maitreya Rishi. So Vidura, although a pure devotee, a great devotee, humbly listens to the Maitreya Rishi, and Srila Prabhupada in one of the purports of Bhagavatam says Maitreya Rishi is a Jnana Mishra Bhakta. Vidura being a pure devotee, still he hears attentively. So fourth canto deals mostly with Swayambhu Manu and his descendants. So Swayambhu Manu had 3 daughters and 2 sons. 3 daughters were Dehuti, Akuti and Prasuti. Dehuti gets married to Kardam Muni, and from third canto, 21st to 23rd chapter is wherein Dehuti pastimes with Kardam Muni, and in that there is Kapil Muni's teachings. So Akuti, another daughter, marries to Ruchi, and from Akuti and Ruchi, Yagya and Dakshina are born. From Dehuti and Kardam, 9 daughters and 1 son Kapila is born. All the 9 daughters are given to great 9 sages. From Prashuti and Daksha, 16 daughters are born, and 13 are given in marriage to Dharma, and each the remaining 3 each are married one to Lord Shiva, Pritha, and Agni. Prithas and Agni. So we see there is 4 parts in this 4th canto. Part A deals with Manu's daughters and Daksha's sacrifice, and Lord's first part, the first chapter of this part A is descendants of Manu's daughters, and part B deals with Daksha's sacrifice and Lord Shiva's, wherein Lord Shiva is not called for the sacrifice, and Sati gives up her life in the sacrificial arena. She is reborn as Parvati and she is married to Lord Shiva. Part B is from the chapter 8 to 12. It basically deals with Adharma's dynasty, Brahma's son Adharma, and he represents various unfavorable elements of bhakti which are not conducive for practicing Vaishnava. And then Dhruv Maharaj's descendancy is there, and Dhruv Maharaj's story with Uttanapad, then he goes to the forest, and then how he performs the austerities, then he pleases Lord Narayan, Krishnagarbha, then when he rules for 36,000 years, and Uttama is killed by Yaksha, and being angry, Dhruva Maharaj starts killing all the Yakshas. There, Swayambhu Manu again comes and tells him to calm down. And this conversation is basically Upanishad between the 18 shlokas which are there in Upanishad forms this conversation between Swayambhu Manu and Dhruva. And then later, 3rd part is from chapter 13 to 23, wherein pastimes of King Anga, who was a very pious king, but he did not had sons. So that's why demigods were not, accepting his offerings. So by marrying the daughter of Mrityu, he gets a son called Vena, but he was very notorious son and he used to do a lot of mischievous activities, and all the citizens were unhappy. Fed up of him, Raja Anga leaves for the forest, retires early, and when he proclaims, and we know that when a person becomes very much proud of his strength and he starts claiming that he's the supreme personality of God, the ego is such that he starts feeling that he himself is Lord of everything. And in that sense, we see that Brahmanas try to convince him, but when he does not listen, Brahmana's job is to establish dharma, then Vena is killed. Then they start churning the Vena's body, and from the Vena's thighs comes Bahuka, was demonic qualities of Vena, and from the arms comes the partial incarnation of Lord Vishnu and Lakshmi, that is Prithu Maharaj and Archi. And then we see the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj, wherein he is approached by the citizens of the country, and they say that they are going hungry, there are no grains, earth is not providing. Earth was basically not providing because Vena was so sinful. So whenever there are many sinful people and they are doing the laws, they're breaking the laws of the nature, this is what earth and the nature does. It stops providing. So Prithu Maharaj had to chase the earth, and the earth gives her the formula Bhudevi that you have to, she starts milking the earth, and then all the grains and the natural resources are provided back to the citizens of Prithu Maharaj. And in this way, Prithu Maharaj then conducts a huge sacrifice. He wanted to do 100 Ashwamedha Yajna. In the 99th one, Indra feels insecure, and that is the case where we see that most of the times Indra starts feeling that someone is trying to take my position, someone is trying to, usurp my kingdom, or he wants my throne. So we hear this is a continuous theme in all the Vedic scriptures. But generally, we don't have to offend Indra. Indra is a great devotee of Lord. Whenever he performs the yajna, Lord Vishnu personally comes. So what we have to understand from this is a great person is being used by the will of the Lord to make us learn wonderful lessons. So in this context, when Indra tries to stop by many dubious ways, by becoming even a fake mendicant and all those things, and he steals the horse, Prithu Maharaj is approached by Brahma, and Brahmaji says that you want to please the Lord or you want to achieve something. So in our life, there will always be choice whether we want to please Vaishnavas or in so-called unhealthy competition, we want to, become number one. So Prithu Maharaj obliges by the instructions of Brahmaji and he gives up the idea. And later, not only that, he forgives Indra for whatever he had done. So that's a great qualities of Prithu Maharaj. Then we hear Prithu Maharaj being glorified by the citizens, by different people, the ministers. Then he is feeling embarrassed and he says, I'm not the Supreme Lord, don't glorify me. But he humbly tells them. And this is what the quality of a Vaishnava is. Here, even if he does a great things, but he never wants appreciation, he never wants, glorification. He gets embarrassed when someone is glorifying him. Srila Prabhupada, whenever he was glorified for his preaching activities, he used to tell that this is all done by you. He used to tell all you American and European boys and girls, this is your hard work, this is your intelligence, and you are provided by my Guru Maharaj Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur for the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Such is the mood of a humble devotee that he never wants to take credit. So in this way, we go to the next place wherein Prithu Maharaj, being thus instructed later by Kumaras, Chatush Kumar, and then finally he perfects his life and goes back home, back to Godhead. Part D deals with Prachini Bari and the Prachetas, the section which we are in. This Prachini Bari and the allegory of Puranjan is there in 25th to 29th chapter, and the stories of Prachetas comes in the 24th chapter and in 30th and 31st. Here we see a great sage, Narad Muni, throughout, Bhagavatam or Vedic cosmology, Vedic history, we see this. He is saving so many devotees. In this 4th canto itself, he saved Dhruva. He shown him the path, and he asked him, he inquires him, he's just a child, why you want to do this austerity, go home and relax. But after he's shown sincerity, Dhruva Maharaj is given all kind of guidance, and then he practices severe austerity, then the Lord is pleased. In this case also, he wants to bring Prachini Bari out of the attachments, and we see here in this purport, it is given, and before this, the first third shlokas of this chapter deals with the story and allegory, wherein it's come Puranjan story is there, and in that how Puranjan is attached to his body and so sense objects, sense gratification. So he's giving a story in a way so that Prachini Bari, because he was an intellectual person, he can understand. Prachini Bari literally means in the eastern direction, whichever way you go, there were so many kusha grass mats everywhere for the yajna. And what kind of yajna were happening? They were all animal sacrifices. So Narad Muni tells him, and if you continue this way, what you're doing, trying to do this animal sacrifices, he scares him by showing that all the animals which you have been sacrificing them, he shows him they're all waiting for you to take revenge. So then he starts listening, and in this purport, we'll come to this purport, and Srila Prabhupada says that one form of hunting is known as women hunting. Herein we say that Srila Prabhupada has changed the perspective from hunting to women hunting. So basically hunting deals with generally killing the animals, and it is practiced from the human history from bygone ages. Srila Prabhupada, what is trying to emphasize here is a person one who's attached and one who does not follow dharma is never satisfied with whatever enjoyment he gets, even with a dharmic wife, and he always looks for another woman to satisfy his senses. In the Vedic culture, it was not that this kind of problems, if they come in someone's life, there was solution for it, and the solution for that was even in a Dwarka or Ayodhya, there was always a place wherein this kind of women who are never satisfied by having relationship with one individual, or the men who are not satisfied with having a relationship with a woman, they are provided a facility wherein they can do that. They can quench their thirst of sense gratification. But in the society, in the society, they should not pollute the other good beings. They should not pollute the women. That's why that facility was there. But for any person to progress in spirituality, the first thing is sense control. And all the great religious traditions teaches this. And here, I would like to emphasize on why the hunting, whenever this hunting comes in, Kshatriya kings are sometimes advised to go to the forest to hunt ferocious animals just to learn how to kill. So one may argue that why there's so much it is focused that killing is so much focused on this. Why can't there be compassion for animals? Why it has to be killed? From a culture which we are living in, the contextual and the cultural aspect which was there in the Vedic time, we have to understand how it was. The society, the Varnashram, the Kshatriyas were meant to be prepared all the time for endangered war to protect the citizens. So in that situation, if that kind of problem arises, they have to be ready. And a person who is not at all seen how the blood is, and he has not seen someone dying, he has not hunted down someone, then when and how that person is going to fight on the battlefield? It is a place where courage has to be shown. It is a place where a person will not run away from fighting, seeing the blood and seeing so many people are dying. So in that situation, we understand that this was for training. This was never a kind of activity where a person does not, is a merciless in his killing. And it is done by the Shastric injunctions. And the animals which were killed were those animals, ferocious animals, who were causing a lot of problems to the great sages who were living in the ashram in the forest. So generally, sadhus used to tell, these are the tigers, leopards, or other animals which are trying to cause problem. So please take care of them. And Kshatriyas used to hunt them down. It was never a sports. It was never for so-called entertainment. As in so many places and countries, we see lots of animals are being killed for just for enjoyment or their skill or so-called their brute kind of enjoyment they want to have. So here we see from Vedic perspective that so many scriptures, there is a change in the scenario when person tries to hunt animals. From Ramayana, we see that the whole thing changed. Dashrath Maharaj was such an expert. He was so powerful, he could easily hunt the animals even during the night. But just because he thought that he's too much, when a person is too much talented, many times he may cross the line and he kills by mistakenly Shravan, and by that he gets the curse. And Dashrath Maharaj had to bear that curse. And we see even in the Ramayana later, when Sri Ramachandra is approached by Mother Sita, and Mother Sita requests that I want that golden deer. Lord Ramchandra repeatedly tells that, and Lakshmana also tells that this has to be a Mayavi. This is a golden. I have never seen this kind of Mriga, but Sita Mata has the desire to have. So Srila Prabhupada, in this purport also, he says that a living entity is when he tries to go away from Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is caught by Maya and overpowered by the desire for sense gratification, does not care for religious principles. Similarly, we see in the Lord Ramchandra's pastime, the lesson which we can be learned, of course, it's a very transcendental pastime, but for us, the lesson to be learned is a soul when he wants to enjoy, independent of Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is where he is trapped in the Maya. And here we see that Sita Devi wanted to have the golden deer. Lord Ramchandra chases, and that's how Ravana seizes the opportunity and kidnaps Mother Sita. Even in Mahabharata, we see that Raja Pandu, who was a son of Vichitra Virya, but he was, there is a paddhat or a process called Niyoga, and he was born by the Niyog process by Ved Vyas, Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. And Amba was the daughter who gets away. She wanted to marry Raja Shalya, and this is how Ambika and Ambalika were married to Vichitra Virya. Then there was an issue that Vichitra Virya dies early. Chitrangada was died on the battlefield when he was fighting with another Gandharva named Chitrangada at Kurukshetra. So situation, there was a crisis. Bhishma is approached. Yesterday, I was hearing Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj's class, and he was telling the mistake of Bhishma. From a karmakandic perspective, Mahabharata can be seen on two perspectives. One is dharma, artha, kama, moksha level, and the fruitive activities, and at the level of pure bhakti. From the level of pure bhakti, Bhishma was a pure devotee. He was trying to, you know, tell that even if the circumstances are not favorable, still if a person is dedicated, still if a person wants to practice bhakti sincerely, he can take shelter of Lord Krishna in all situations and practice bhakti. And he wanted to give Virya to Krishna in the battlefield. So Bhishma is requested by Satyavati. He repeatedly she is requested. Bhishma had taken a vow that he will remain a lifelong celibate, and he had also taken a vow that whoever be the king of Hastinapur, he will always be loyal to that kingdom. So that is one of the reasons why he does not change the side to the Pandavas. Although he had so much love for Pandavas, although he always wanted to give them all care and love, but the Karma Kanda's level, we can understand that he was feeling that I have eaten the salt, and he wanted to pay, he was indebted to them, so he never wanted to change the side. And many say that because a lot of wealth used to come from there, he was getting money from there. That is not the main reason. The main reason from devotional perspective is he was fulfilling the will of the Supreme Lord. Here on, we see that the Raja Pandu, from his childhood, he had all virtuous qualities, and after winning over all the kings and satisfying Bhishma, after getting married to Madri and Kunti, he one point of time has a desire that he wants to renounce everything and go to Himalayas to practice. And they both agree, both the wives, they agree. And there is once he was hunting, and in that he accidentally kills Kindam Rishi, who was uniting with his wife in the body of deer. So he curses Pandu. So the whole perspective changes here. If Pandu would not have been cursed, the whole situation wherein the sons of Pandu would have returned back or not, that is a question mark. So from a general perspective, if you see, we may feel that such calamity, why it has come in a devotee's life, why Raja Pandu has to go through all this, why great Mahabhagavat like Kunti Devi, and we hear such wonderful, glorious, prayers by Kunti in the first canto, why she has to go through all this. And we see that he's cursed and he eventually dies. Madri becomes Sati, and then before becoming Sati, she had so much confidence in Mother Kunti. She says that you will serve my son better than us. So better than me. So she goes as Sati. Basically, the divine sons are born before this, and the eldest one is Yudhishthir Maharaj, then there is Bhim, then there is Arjun, and from Madri, Nakul and Sahadev. All of them, we heard he was hunting, and this is how the whole situation changed in Mahabharata. Not only here, we also know the favorite pastime which happens in Mahabharata, wherein many of the people, especially who are like Karna supporters, they take it as an reason for sure, telling to the people that this was the reason why he could not defeat Arjuna, because he was cursed. Basically, he joins the Parshuram Academy or the Parshuram's teachings, and Parshuram condition was he will only teach to the Brahmanas. Before this, Karna tries to go to Dronacharya, and Dronacharya rejects him in the sense that it was already, he was doing it for Kshatriyas. It was for a limited number of students, and he was already training them. Then he approaches Parshuram, and he tells that conditions are told to him, and he cheats Parshuram, and he learns all the arts. And at the end, somehow he's the pastime that wherein the blood starts coming from the thighs of Karna, but Parshuram is taking rest, and he does not make movements. So Parshuram gets up by seeing the blood, and he says, "You cannot be a Brahmana. You have to be a Kshatriya, because how can you tolerate so much pain?" Then Karna tells them, "Yeah, I have told false to you. Please forgive me. So in that situation, from Karna is disgusted, he's disappointed. Then he starts, moving towards the forest, and then in great disappointment, he tries to hunt an animal, and he finds that it's a cow. Then he again get cursed, and in that situation, we see that here also, not thinking and hunting and not seeing the animal properly, and then trying to hunt down, and we see that in that situation, somehow he's cursed that on the battlefield, Bhumi curses him that in the battlefield, wheel of your chariot will be grounded and you will not be able to remove it. And Parshuram also tells that all the astras, all the gyan which you have got for Divya astras, it will be lost and you will not be able to, fight. And you will, in the battlefield, you will not be able to remember at the most crucial time. So when a person is preparing for say, for example, in India, IIT, JEE, and he has worked, throughout the year, and when there are exams to be given and he forgets all the, formulas and everything, how the person will feel. Similarly, people say that happened to Karna. But one has to understand that in comparison to the Karna and Arjuna, many people feel that Karna was, superior or Arjuna was inferior to him. But we'll just analyze in a way different pastimes wherein Arjuna's superiority is clearly established. So first and foremost, the first incidents where it happens, there are two instances where there is indirect fight, and there are two instances where there is direct fight. First and foremost is that when there is a graduation ceremony and all the students of Dronacharya, they show their different skills. Arjuna, shows the skills which excel everyone, and he gate crashes Karna, enters there, and he shows his skills. And he had said that he'll defeat Arjuna, but he only could have equaled till the sunset. And we see that after that, the situation is such that this first, dual match between Arjuna and Karna is equal. It's tied. Second time is an instance wherein Drona wanted to take revenge of Drupad. They had a wrong rivalry, and Drona was insulted by Drupada. Drupada, throughout the Mahabharata, is a very virtuous king, and he is very dharmic. One incident where he insults Drona, that is the only black spot on his whole life. So we see in Mahabharata, there is nothing called complete white and complete black, and all personalities except great devotees, Pandavas, there are some faults each and everywhere in each and every personality, including Drona and Bhishma and so many others. So here we see, so Kauravas say that we will do the thing. The task was that as a Dakshina to Drona, they have to capture Drupada. So when Kauravas go, and even Karna goes with them, they are all defeated by Drupada. But when Pandavas go, Arjun and Bhima squarely defeats Drupada, and Drupada has to fall to the ground. Generally, a king who is defeated feels very embarrassed or feels very low. But here, Drupada was happy because he was feeling, I have found a person who's so valorous, who's so powerful. Either I should have a son like him, or he should become my son-in-law. That was his desire at that moment. And then we see that in this instance, Drupada defeats Karna, but Arjuna defeats Drupada. In this, we understand that Arjuna was better than Karna. There is another instance wherein Varnavrat, now due to Lakshagraha incident where the lakh's house was set on fire, done by Bhima just to checkmate the Duryodhan, and Bhima single-handedly he takes everyone on his body, the four Pandavas and Mother Kunti, and he runs. That was the power, the sheer power of Bhima. And after that, when they reach Panchal Pradesh, they come to know, not the Panchal Pradesh, in the Varnavrat area, he sends a lot of, Duryodhan wants to show off that how much wealth they have. They want to tease. See, already they have been sent to the forest. They have been taken away from their kingdom. All the wealth has been taken away. Now, to further embarrass them, to further make them mortified, Duryodhan, Karna, and everyone with on the elephant, they ride on elephants and all the jewelries and their ladies. They all come to tease them, to show them that you are living in such poverty, you are a beggar, and like that. So when they reach there, there is a lake which was Gandharva's lake, and it is clearly stated by Gandharva that do not enter, it is not for humans. But Duryodhana was arrogant. When he tries to enter, there is a fight, and Karna is defeated, and Karna runs away. But Duryodhana is bound, and Duryodhana is, bound by the ropes there, and Gandharvas were supposed to kill him. Pandavas reach there, and Bhima understands that this is a situation. Bhima becomes happy that this kind of sinful people have been eventually being punished. They'll get punished. Yudhishthir Maharaj tells them, for the whole world, we are 105. There will be difference between us. We are 5 Pandavas and there are 100 Kauravas. But for the whole world, we are 105 Kauravas. So we have to save them. It is dignity of our state, of our dynasty, all the ladies and everyone, and especially Duryodhan. And when Bhima does not listen to that, then Yudhishthir Maharaj uses the diplomacy, and he says that the whole world will come to know, Bhima, your power. The whole world will come to know that how powerful you were, and you saved Duryodhana from the death. So Bhima says, okay, I'll do it. Then Bhima fights the other Gandharvas, and actually the main Gandharva with whom he had bound the Duryodhana, Arjuna fights, and eventually he defeats. And this is how, in this situation, Karna is defeated by Gandharva, and here is Arjuna defeats Gandharva. So again, Arjuna is superior to him. Even in the Swayamvar, when there is a Swayamvar of Drupad Raja's daughter, Draupadi, and Drupad had a desire that only Arjuna should marry. So he had kept a task by hitting the arrow at the eyes of a fish, by seeing the reflection of a fish in a water, by seeing below and hitting up. And that kind of skill, even only Arjuna has. He knew that. So he set that kind of target. And in that whole Swayamvar, when the Pandavas come to know, they go in the Brahmanas' ropes, all the Kshatriyas try. So there are different versions of people telling different things about, what happened with Karna. The popular one is that Karna is rejected by Draupadi. But one has to understand, she, even in the popular version, there's nothing called she insulted Karna. It was a Swayamvar. She had all the rights, because it is a Swayamvar, to decide whom to marry. Hitting the eye of the fish, or whatever the task was given, was just a criteria. It was not that one person hits and she has to marry, or he gets the Draupadi. It was just a criteria to decide, to help Draupadi to decide for a person whom to marry. Is he a successful person? Is he a qualified person? But we see that all the people try and no one wins it. Arjuna hits the target, and all the Kshatriyas are given, provocative kind of a speech by Karna and Duryodhan. Then they all attack Arjun, and in that sense, Arjuna fights with Karna. There also, later when he was getting defeated, Karna makes a statement that I don't want to kill a Brahmana, so I want to go from here. And Bhima handles Shalya. So in this way, we say that it's like square one in this incident. But the greatest glory of Arjuna, wherein it is clearly mentioned that all kind of arrow and all his knowledge about archery excels, is in the Agyatwas at the Virat Parva, wherein he was cursed by Urvashi to become eunuch. And actually at that time, if a person sees from a perspective, from Arjuna's perspective, he had gone to the heavenly planets to acquire a lot of weapons. He was preparing for the war, and he was doing a lot of austerities. So there was no time when Arjuna was not diligent. He was hardworking. When they were in exile, all the Pandavas, they were working hard to please the Devatas, to get weapons, to get prepared. They wanted peace at they were trying for peace, but if eventually the war has to happen, they have to be prepared, because they knew the vices and the Kauravas, how sinful they were, and they would never ever come to the table and have a peace deal. So Arjuna, by the request of Vedvyas, he goes to the heaven, and at the first instance he pleases Indra. Then he sits on the throne of Indra, and then he kills Nivata Kavachas and Kalkanyas. And there, after that, being pleased, he is, Indra tells that Urvashi that please satisfy Arjuna. Arjuna shows such kind of, here we are speaking about sense control and everything in this purport. Arjuna had such a sense control that approached by such a beautiful woman as Urvashi is, still he says that you have been associated with my, Purvajas and with Pururava, so I cannot associate with you. And by being rejected by Arjuna, or she feels very much disappointed and she curses. So pure devotee in this situation, he's showing a quality of sense control. Basically, he should be appreciated for it. He should get reward, but he's cursed. But in that situation also, Arjuna never thinks that why this reversal, why this has happened to me. So generally devotees don't keep thinking why this. They always think, what can I do next? What can I do next to please the devotees? And here we see that Arjuna was once, before this, Indra tells Chitrasen to teach him dance. So Arjuna was not understanding why his father is telling him to teach dance. I have come here to acquire weapons where the dance is needed. And why as a Kshatriya I have to learn dance? That dance and the curse, apparent curse, from the external perspective curse, become the biggest benediction in the life of Arjuna, wherein it was impossible. Why that when the second time, when there was a war, when there was not the war, when they were playing the dice, the gambling match, second time, first time they got defeated, Draupadi is insulted, and by seeing the situation, Dhritarashtra finally, he gets his head and he tells that everything has to be given back. And when they were going again, Duryodhan and Karna says they have to be brought back to the match. And this is how the condition was, that whoever loses the kingdom, and they have to go for the 13 years for exile, 12 years in forest, and 1 year in 1 year in Agyatwas, incognito. So this was the condition. For the Pandavas, they were so famous throughout Bharatvarsha. For anyone to not recognize that these are Pandavas was very difficult. And especially Arjun. After Krishna, he was the most famous person on the earth at that moment. It was very difficult for him, unless and until his whole body structure changes, his everything changes. And we see in this situation that even when they come in the robes of Brahmana, in the Swayamvar of Drupada Raja, there also all were just trying to understand how can they have such physique. It's the body of Kshatriya, but they had done so much austerity, so they had become little lean. So they thought that maybe they are not the Kshatriyas. But here, after going to Virat Raja's kingdom, it would have been easily Virat would come to know. And Virat was not such a huge king. He was not a big king. So to stay in his kingdom, and they had taken occupation of a menial occupation, all were like doing small work. Draupadi becomes servant, and Kanka, the Yudhishthira Maharaj becomes the Kanka kind of advisor or gives entertainment to the king. Vallabha, Bhima becomes a head cook in the kitchen, and Nakul and Sahadeva, they take care of cows and horses. This kind of seva they are ready to do. They are the royal princes. They were the kings. Yudhishthira Maharaj was the king of the earth. They had such a wonderful kingdom, Indraprastha, which even Indra had not such kingdom even in Amravati. And when Duryodhan goes there, everyone is appreciating, and Duryodhan has so much envy in his heart, he could not digest it. That is how he brings him to the dice game. So it was very difficult. But Krishna arranged the situation in such a way that he becomes a Brahanala. He teaches dance to Uttara, and while teaching her, the eventual thing is Virat becomes an ally, not only ally of Pandavas, he becomes relative. Virat wanted Arjuna to marry Uttara, but he says he was teaching her as a spiritual, as a dance teacher. So how can I? But she can get married to my son Abhimanyu. And see the situation. The 1 year association with Uttara, Arjuna's association, Uttara's association with Arjuna transformed her and make her such a good devotee just by association with Arjuna that later the Mahabhagavata is born. 3 generations, if they practice sincere austerity and their devotees, whole transformation can happen. We see in this Bhagirath's episode that 3 generations did the austerity and Ganga came to the earth. We see here also the 3 great ladies, starting from Kunti Devi, then Mahabhagavat, great devotee Draupadi. She showed the complete surrender to Lord Krishna in that Asat Sabha may start with kind of a disastrous event where anyone can, especially a woman, can get mortified that she has been disrobed, but eventually her glory is eternalized, immortalized forever. Seeing everyone understands how great devotee is Draupadi and how she surrendered to Krishna. And then we see Abhimanyu's wife Uttara. She was such a great devotee. In her womb came the Mahabhagavat Parikshit Maharaj. And seeing from this hunting incident, if you try to analyze, the whole Bhagavatam starts with an expedient, with an excursion wherein Parikshit Maharaj is on a hunting excursion. And when he's on the hunting excursion, he's in the forest, he gets thirsty. And one has to analyze, the Acharyas tell that one who could tolerate the heat of Brahmastra in the womb of Mother Uttara, he is saved by Krishna. He comes in the womb and saves Uttara's womb. How could he get thirsty? So it was a divine will of the Lord. And Parikshit Maharaj goes to the ashram of Shamik Rishi. He was thirsty, and Shamik Rishi was in his trance. He does not get up. He puts up the dead snake on his, neck. And then Shringi, the son of Shamik Rishi, feels that this is a great insult of my father, and immature guy curses Parikshit Maharaj. For a small mistake, he curses him to die within 7 days, bitten by the Takshak. So this is how Parikshit Maharaj, a great devotee, the whole this, when I hear about this hunting thing, so many pastimes comes to my mind, and I'm trying to relate to it. So here we see that Parikshit Maharaj is such a great devotee. He could have counter-cut Shamik Rishi. He was a powerful Bhagavat. When he came out of the womb, he was searching for Krishna. Generally, we search for different people, but he is searching for Krishna. That's why his name is Parikshit. He was doing examination or a pariksha. Where is that guy who saved me? So this way, from childhood, he used to play with dolls of Krishna, and he was such a great devotee. And in this situation, when Krishna puts devotees in such trying situations, such a situation which is like very difficult, he wants to bring the glory of devotee to the world, that how glorious they are. He took it, Parikshit Maharaj, he renounced, he gave the kingdom, and then he came to the banks of River Ganga, Sutkal, and took shelter of Sukdev Goswami. That is how we have got this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam. Heard 7 days without any break, and he perfected his life. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is such a wonderful literature. It is ripened fruit. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam sukamukad amrita davya samitam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muraho rasika bhui bhavaka. It's the ripened fruit of all the Vedic literatures. It's the essence of all the Vedas, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Acharya say it is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So Gaudiya Vaishnavas had not written the commentary on before. They thought that because it is a natural commentary, but for authorized any sampradaya, there has to be commentary on Gita and Vedanta Sutra. So on Vedanta Sutra, it is written by Baldev Vidyabhushan, the disciple of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and Baldev Vidyabhushan does this in Jaipur, and that's how it is called the Govinda Bhashya. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes a wonderful commentary which is called Sarartha Darshani. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions in whole of the Bhagavatam the Rasik perspective, and Baldev Vidyabhushan represents the technical perspective. And here we see the last line wherein Srila Prabhupada's mention in this purport is, killing animals to eat their flesh is forbidden for human beings. So what does Prabhupada wants to tell us? See, Vedic culture is all inclusive, although for perfection of spiritual emancipation, one has to give up sinful activities, but always in all the history, whatever we know the human history, there have been always been people who are eating meat. But from the Vedic perspective, there were conditions how the animal has to be sacrificed, or how the animal has, one who cannot control his tongue, what is the procedure. And in all the bona fide religions, there is a procedure. But when a person is too much interested in sense gratification, when he is too much selfish, he does not consider for any other living beings, he is having no compassion, he kills ruthlessly. And the situation we are in and the pandemic which we are facing, the main and the real cause is this no compassion for the animals, and the flus which have begun in the 21st century, and mostly the latest one from Wuhan, that is COVID, it is due to the animal killing, the wet market. Animals are killed in the slaughterhouses, but the way they are maintained in these Chinese areas, it's such a gruesome, it's so unhealthy, and that is how these viruses are coming into the human beings. And we are seeing the situation wherein a person is trying to think where we have gone wrong. So when a person does not come to know and is perplexed, like in the first chapter of Gita, seeing the relatives, Arjuna, one who had prepared so much, he had worked so much hard, and we were speaking on how he was such a powerful guy, he defeats in the Virat Parva, he defeats all the great warriors single-handedly. Arjuna, Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, Duryodhan, Karna, Dushasan. That is the highlight of his life. But from the highlight of his life, the real situation test came in his life, because in Virat Parva, he had not to kill the relatives. He was not supposed to kill. He was just wanted to stop them from doing any problem to the Raja Virat. But here in the battlefield of Mahabharata, he had prepared the whole time. They had, so many injustices had happened to them. So they were prepared for war. They have to fight now, and seeing their relatives in front of them. And Prabhupada focuses on the first chapter, the glorious qualities of Arjuna. He says that devotee is harmless, devotee is compassionate, devotee is kripalu, devotee always wants to forgive. That is the focus of Srila Prabhupada. In the second chapter, he focuses on the Dehatma Buddhi, the perplexed situation of Arjuna, because Arjuna is, Krishna is using Arjuna by his Yog Maya potency to teach each and every living entity. In our childhood, we used to always watch on this Sayadri, Marathi Sayadri Vahini, Arogya Sampada. So in that, every time there was to be a doctor who was specialist in some, dealing with diseases, a cancer specialist, a TB specialist, or AIDS specialist, or cholera specialist. So host was the same person every week. So he used to ask questions: how does this disease happen? What are the causes? What are the symptoms? How we can overcome this? So he used to tell different questions, and the person used to answer. In childhood, I used to think, how come this person has all the diseases on the earth? So I asked my mother, and mother said, he's asking questions on the behalf of the audience. So Arjuna's perplexed situation is not his weakness of heart. He's a great devotee. He is companion of Lord Krishna, but Krishna is using him to teach all the mankind for the rest of the eternity. If we are in the perplexed situation as we are in, where we should go. And in the second chapter, he really, from Krishna starts telling him that how this contamination has come into you. And then he also rhetorically tells, in a way, rhetorically way, he tells Arjuna tells Krishna that would you kill your Madhusudana and Arisudana? You killed Madhu demon. You killed who are your enemies. But will you ever kill, Acharya say, Sandipani Muni, who is your guru, or Ugrasen, who is your forefathers, your grandfather? So how do you expect me to kill Bhishma or to kill Drona? Although they are there, they are always Mahanubhava. And Srila Prabhupada writes in that commentary, in those to that shlokas, that they had done a lot of mistakes. Even Bhishma, especially in the Asat Sabha. But Drona was not at the level of the pure devotee, so he had done a lot of mistakes, and whatever there was no case wherein they deserved so much respect as Arjuna was trying to give. In the situation of Bhishma, one profound thing where he the biggest mistake which he made from our study perspective, which we can see, which is mentioned in Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay. And in Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay, it is also mentioned about the Karna that he had tried to hit the eye of fish. He was given a chance, but he missed by the hair size, just missed by whisker. That's it. That is what Madhvacharya says. Here in this case, in Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnay, it is mentioned that when Draupadi is brought into the Asat Sabha, she is put on the floor by Dushasan. She gets up and she says that I'm sorry, I should not have come in this kind of dress in this Sabha. Please forgive me, but my question is such that if Yudhishthir Maharaj, has already loosened everything, he has lost everything, then how can he bet me? How can he play on me? How can he say that when he has lost everything, he is no more a king, he is a das, he has become a slave. So here Bhishma says, actually it is very difficult to understand dharma. Dharma is very guhyam. From one perspective, he has lost everything, so he has no right to, play the dice, putting you on as a betting. But a wife is, in the Vedic culture, wife is always with husband and she is supposed to serve the husband. In that sense, he has all the rights. So here Acharyas mentioned that he is going into the Niyamagra. Bhishma is going into Niyamagra, technicalities. So all the rules are meant to give justice. So Bhishma should have understood that it is best thing was to do justice to the Draupadi, not to see into the what rules are there. So every rule is meant to give justice. Nyaya has to happen. And when Dushasan is doing such kind of sinful acts, among all the Kauravas, the only person who gets up and he speaks of religious duties is Vikarna. He tells that what we are doing is such a sinful activity, we will be condemned for the rest of the eternity, all the Kauravas. So please stop it. And he tells that a person who has come from hunting, a person who is intoxicated, drunken lot of wine, liquor, a person who is infatuated with the beauty of women and he has associated, and a person who is playing the gambling match gets carried away. So one should not take whatever happens in this four situations seriously, and she should be stopped from such kind of insult. And that's how Vikarna says, and Karna stops Vikarna and he says that no, he is the only insane talk what I heard is from Vikarna. So Karna tells the very opposite. So we see from this whole episode that Bhishma and Drona had the moment to rise and rebel, to rise and take side of Dharma. They could not do, because we gave the reasons for the Bhishma, that the Lord wanted such pastimes wherein he is on the opposite side fighting, and he wanted that Vidya Rasa to be experienced. And Bhishma wanted to see Lord as Partha Sarathi. That is his meditation. But in the case of Drona, he does a lot of mistake. And from day one, rule is broken in day one when the son of Raja Virat is killed mercilessly by Shalya. But overall, from day 1 to day 10 of Mahabharata war, Bhishma maintains rules and regulations. But from Drona's, when he becomes the commander-in-chief, rules are broken each and every day. So that's how Drona ends up in a very, his life is ended in a very ghastly way by Satyaki. And that's how Drona is punished. And we free is free from this situation that if a person is not compassion, if a person there's no mercy. So Vedic culture focuses on mercy to all living entities. The definition of praja itself means that one who is born in the country. It does not necessarily, in a specific sense, it's a human beings, but in an overall way, if you see the broad perspective of the word praja, it means every living entity and especially cows, they have to be protected. Until the time the killing of animals does not end, and especially mother cow, this kind of situations where the nature will keep hitting us back. And what should be the consciousness of a devotee, what he should do? We'll try to answer that. So here we see that in the second chapter, in the seventh verse, after giving all kind of arguments, he understands, and in the sixth verse of the second chapter, he is fully, indecision mood and does not understand what has to be done, what is good for me, what is shreya, what is not shreya for me. And finally, in the seventh verse, he says, Karpanya dosha upat sabhava prichami tvam dharma samulucheta yashreyashana nishchitam bruhitanme shishyastyam shadimam tam prapannam. He says that now Krishna, just forget that friendship and everything. I want to become your disciple and I want to take your shelter. Please instruct me. And from the seventh to the eighth verse, he tells to, answer his queries. And since then, Krishna answers all the questions and the doubts of Arjuna and makes him prepared for the war. And in the 18th chapter, he clearly says Arjuna clearly says Krishna that I am ready for the war. So in all the perplexed situation which Arjuna went, we all go through the situation. When we look towards left, when we look towards right, when we look down, we don't find anyone, no help. Then the only way we can get help is look up. Look up means towards Krishna and try to take his shelter. Taking shelter of Krishna means taking shelter of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra and pleasing spiritual master. And the way to please spiritual master is sincerely practice our devotional life, do our swadhyaya perfectly, sadhana perfectly, take strong sangha, behave properly, because if you do attentive chanting and attentive dealing, that is called sadachar. If you do our sadachar properly, then there will be there is no impediment in our perfecting our life and relishing Krishna consciousness in this very life and perfecting our life and going back home, back to Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada emphasized so much. And Srila Prabhupada's main thing was he was always merciful towards the devotees. Little, take away from the main principles. If a devotee is not able to follow, Srila Prabhupada was always merciful, giving them chances. So as a sadhaka, we have to be very strict on ourselves and doing our sadhana perfectly. But regarding others, we have to be very compassionate as Srila Prabhupada was. We have to be inclusive in a way that every devotee feels sheltered. So that is how we, at our level, we can do three things which will perfect our life. First and foremost is one has to chant sincerely, that is Name Ruchi. Then that Name Ruchi we will get by Shushushu Shaddadhanasya Vasudeva Katha Ruchi Syan Mahat Seva Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevana. The taste for hearing and the taste for chanting properly, we get by the blessings of great souls, great devotees. Bhakti is given, bhakti is not achieved. And that is given by Krishna's great devotees. So when he pleases great devotees, he gets bhakti. So this is how we should do great Vaishnava Seva. And then when we are chanting sincerely, when we are taking shelter of Krishna, when we have done basic studies of Shastras, and then the next thing which Srila Prabhupada wanted us, and that is what ISKCON movement is, it's an preaching movement, that is Jivedaya. We should reach each and every soul, and this is very much needed. This kind of online preaching, the group which this Bhakta Sangha group has been doing for a decade now, but in this pandemic we have no other way to preach than this way. This is the only way. From last 3 months I am staying inside GV, and for some 14 days I was quarantined when I came after preaching in Mumbai. So 3 months I have not seen the outside world. So the only way to reach out to the people is by doing this kind of preaching. And finally, I'd like to tell that the situation if you see the situation, it's very painful that so many people have been deceased, so many people are getting incurred by the pandemic. We have to pray for them. We have to be, it's not praying for others' lives is not considered material. It's very much heart of a Vaishnava. As we see at the end of this fourth canto, the Prachini Bari is given allegorical story of Puranjana. Then he, to make it more clear, he gives, and Narad Muni gives another story, allegorical story of deer. Then he straightforward tells how the soul transmigrates and he perfects his life. Prachetas did do the austerities and for many years inside the water. And when they come out, they start burning all the trees. And then by the instruction of Lord, they in the 24th chapter, they hear the instructions by Lord Shiva. They perfect their life. Prachetas have a great, all the 10 Prachetas married to a single woman, Marisha, who is gives birth to a great son. And this is how their descendants, the dynasty continues. And in the fifth canto, where we have seen that there were Akuti, Prashuti, and Dehuti, there were two sons, Uttanapad, and the another son was the eldest, who goes for doing austerities because he was having no taste for kingdom or that kind of activities. Is Priyavrat. He is brought back by Brahmaji in the emergency situation. So a Vaishnava, gives up his own ideas just to serve the greater devotees and authorities. As he heard by Brahmaji, so he followed Priyavrat. So similarly, in this situation, we see that there's so many, problems are there. A devotee can and should take shelter of Krishna and try to reach as many souls as possible. So today is celebrated as Liberation Day in Falkland Islands. In the 1982, on this very day, it was liberated from Argentina. UK celebrate that. But their whole celebration is done in a way that there's a cathedral, a church, which is a monument, which signifies that. And they have taken a huge two blue whales jaw bones and they have kept it as a sign or a symbol. And it is done when they had completed conquest, 100 years of conquest of that Falkland Islands in 1933. So till now it is there. So by killing an animal, they want to make it as a monument, and we have seen so many people. So this kind of pain to the animals will always come back, and this is the result what we are going through. And just before giving class, I came to know that one of the famous Bollywood actors, because people are going through a crisis, they don't know what to do. Many people don't know if they can't go out of the home, what has to be done. So this is the very ripe situation where people need help, and all our devotees, they are so much equipped with the shastras, with the sadhana. We can reach out to them and help them. It's a crisis situation. A famous actor called Sushant Singh Rajput just suicide. He could not handle the pressure. He was under such a depression. The whole world is reeling under depression, and we don't know till where it will go. I'm not trying to do fear mongering or create a phobia of pandemic. What I'm trying to say is, in any situation, in every situation, as Prahlad Maharaj took shelter, as Parikshit Maharaj took shelter of Krishna, as ultimately Prachini Bari takes shelter of Narad Muni and perfects his life, we all have to take shelter of Krishna, whatever may be the situation, and thus we can perfect our life. I'd like to thank you very much. Hare Krishna.